G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Caitlin and I'm an American living in beautiful Sydney, Australia. Over on Discord, somebody had recommended this. Nobody talks about the strengths of Australia from the channel Chaotic Traveler. Australia has a lot of strengths, it has a lot of weaknesses, but I'm wondering which are the ones that this particular video is going to focus on. Because I've been making videos long enough, I think you guys know my feelings about particular things about Australia. I love Australia, I absolutely love living here. But just like literally every other country in the world, it has its flaws and has its weaknesses. So let's see what its 5 strengths are according to this video. Grab a Bicky, grab a cuppa, and let's get right into this video.
Every country has its pros and cons. Some countries have more pros, some have more cons, but no country is perfect. After I had traveled Australia for 1 year, I would like to share my thoughts on what I think Australia does better than my country of origin, Germany. Number 1. How people talk to each other. In Australia, it is most common to address someone with their first names. Family names do not matter that much. I have seen letters from authorities like the council beginning with Dear Molly instead of Dear Mrs. Smith.
That's a good point. Now, it does depend on a lot of context. For a council letter to come back that informal is a little bit surprising to hear. But even when you're talking to colleagues and stuff like that, talking to the CEO of my company, we still use first names with people. Don't necessarily hear Mr. or Mrs. Sometimes if somebody's a doctor, you'll hear doctor first. It is very, very common for people to go by their first names. And you know what? It's a little bit nice because you don't have to worry about the formalities. You don't have to worry about potentially offending somebody. It's a lot more casual than it can be in other countries, particularly ones where hierarchy is very, very important. And if you mess that up, you can seriously insult somebody. Here, it's like Aussies are not going to be insulted by their name, or if you call them Mr. or Miss something instead of their first name.
When I opened my bank account, I had the appointment with a girl just a bit younger than myself. When I went out the office, there was an old man waiting outside for her to call him in. She said to him, "Hello Arthur, how are you doing?" That felt so strange to me. I couldn't imagine what kind of relationship these two would be having that this young girl would dare to address this old man with his first name. In Germany, I couldn't really think of a lot of situations where a young lady would address an old man with his first name. Even when you're in hospital and you have heaps of time to make friends with the nurses, they are most likely to still address you with your family name. "Hello Mr. Smith, how are we doing today?"
Yeah, that's very, very similar to what it's like over in the States. People do still say Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. That's the common way a lot of people are addressed over in the States. It's not very common for people to use somebody's first name unless it is very obvious that they are younger than you. Or if you're within a company, it's very obvious that they're in a much lower rank than you. Even then, just out of formalities within companies, people still use Mr. and Miss even if the ranking's a little bit off. Like for example, the CEO of a company is talking to somebody, they'll probably still likely to be used Mr. or Miss. Maybe not so much out of respect, but more just presentation. They don't want to be seen as potentially disrespectful. If it's somebody you're familiar with, somebody you have a close relationship with, yes, of course you're going to use their first name. Here in Australia, it almost doesn't matter the context for the most part. People just go by first names here. It's almost expected.
That creates such a cold distance between individuals. It is very common in Germany that when you work for a company for 2 years, that you don't even know your boss's first name. In Australia, no matter where you go or who you get to know, everyone is immediately your mate. Of course there are black sheep, but you get the general idea. The downside to that, for me personally, is that you can never know who is your actual friend. In Germany, it takes a long time to really make friends with someone, but once you're friends with him, you know that he will try to move mountains for you. Number 2.
He's got a really, really good point there. Because you don't have that formality, it is very, very easy to misconstrue like a, let's say, professional working relationship as a possible friendship. Whereas over in places like the States, and like you said in Germany, it's a lot less likely for that to happen. Now, I feel like in the States, things tend to move a little bit more informally faster than they would in Germany. I can't imagine working in a place in the States where 2 years later I still wouldn't know my boss's first name. But because things are so casual here, it can be a little bit tough to figure out exactly where you stand with some people. Like Aussies don't particularly like labels. They don't like being boxed in. They don't like being categorized. Whereas over in the States, we really do like labels. We do like knowing exactly who somebody is in our life. That's why when people are talking about relationships, you don't really hear the word partner that much over in the States unless you're referring to somebody who's in a gay relationship. People will go by they're my girlfriend, they're my fiance, they're my husband. People don't just say partner like they do over here, and everything becomes a little bit more blurred, even in terms of professional relationships. People start to drop the informalities once you actually build some sort of professional but friendly and cordial relationship with somebody. I worked with lawyers all the time. Unless it was on the phone trying to be a little bit formal around clients, I never called the attorneys I worked with Mr. or Miss. We always used first names in the fairly small offices that I worked in. But when you're going to clients, you always refer to the attorney as Mr. or Miss to show that level of formality and kind of that veiled level of respect.
That might sound a little surprising, but school uniforms. If I were to wear school uniforms back in the day when I was still a kid in school, my life would have been a lot easier. When I went to school, I got bullied on a regular basis for years and years.
See, for me, it was a very different situation. I can't speak to the majority of Americans in this case because I was lucky. My parents did put me into a Catholic school where I did have uniforms from kindergarten all the way up until year 12. I never had the worry of what to wear to school. Is this going to be fashionable? Am I going to be bullied or picked on for this? Because everybody was wearing the exact same thing. Particularly in high school when I went to an all-girls high school. Luckily, uniforms were never a worry for me, but it's definitely one of the strengths of Australia is that even in public school here, uniforms are required. Including hats, which I think is absolutely so darn cute on little kids. I saved this in a couple videos. For some reason, just the hats, the uniforms, it's so cute. Because having uniforms is an equalizer, and while it can be a little bit of a struggle for some parents financially having to pay for new uniforms every single year, ultimately I do think it does help kids a lot more than if you just gave them free range of their outfits every day.
No, I'm not asking for anyone's pity, I'm doing just fine. Back in the day, my parents were only able to get me second-hand clothes. When the new PlayStation 3 came out, guess who got a used PlayStation 1 for Christmas? But I was happy with what I had. I liked my clothes. I enjoyed playing PlayStation 1. But only my classmates seemed to have had a problem with me being poor. And of course they were picking on me for the clothes that I was wearing. I remember the time where you were only cool when you wore soccer shoes as your everyday shoes, without the spikes obviously. And the coolest shoes that you can buy were these Nike 90s. Obviously my mom wouldn't have enough money to buy me those. But we went to Deichmann anyways, which is a big German shoe chain franchise. Every town has one. And Deichmann has their own home brand called Victory. They were copying designs of famous shoes, make a few adjustments and sell them cheap. And so
we didn't quite have anything like that because again, school uniforms, school shoes had to be the same. We did have a little bit of wiggle room when we would have like dress down days once a month. That wasn't a thing until I was in a high school, and then again it was an all-girls high school, and I feel like people genuinely didn't care. People just wanted to be comfortable on the one day out of the month where we could actually wear whatever we wanted. And kids will be kids. Kids will find reasons to bully you for reasons that aren't your clothes. Whether it's your hair color, whether it's wearing glasses, whether it's being really, really overweight, or whatever the reason may be, kids will always find a reason to bully other kids. Unfortunately, it is just a part of the world that we live in. And as much as we'd like to, I don't see that ever going away in the next few generations, unfortunately. I do think it is, to some degree, bullying is just a part of growing up, and it is really unfortunate that way. But in Western cultures, sadly, I don't know anybody who didn't get bullied at some point, at least in middle school.
So it was that I didn't get Nike 90s, but Victory 70s. I personally was so proud. I love those shoes. But you can imagine my schoolmates' opinion on them when I brought them to school. So yeah, that's a very personal reason of why I would prefer school uniforms over plain clothes. Number 3. I don't know if there is an official term for these things, but I call them twist lids. Some glass bottles, I think mainly beer bottles, they have a lid that you can just twist off, so you don't need a lid opener but your bare hands. You can even easily just twist the lid back on the bottle and put it back in the fridge. Not that
I just filmed an Aussie beer video with 11 beers, and I'm just now finding out that most of those were twist off. Because this is news to me. In the States, probably like 50-50. I know that there are some beers that are twist off and some that are not. But it didn't really occur to me until he brought it up that, yeah, there's a lot of beer bottles and stuff like that that are twist lids.
I knew why anyone should do that, apart from maybe when you get spontaneous diarrhea and you want to get your beer back in the fridge before you go nuke in the bathroom. As I have mentioned in previous videos already, there's so much technology that I have discovered in Australia that Germany, meanwhile, appears to me like a medieval country. Which is a good transition to my next point, number 4, digitalization. In Germany, you have to work yourself through a huge stack of paperwork for pretty much anything. In Australia, you can transfer your car insurance by just updating your car details in an app and you're good to go. In Germany, they would send you a new contract via mail that you would have to fill out and sign and send them back. Because in
Oh, I feel like maybe in the States we're kind of in the middle ground on that, because while everything isn't digital, you do get a lot through email that you can like print out or use DocuSign to sign off on and then send back. It's not like everything's done super easily through an app. There's still a lot of like, America's still kind of catching up in technology in some ways, but I don't feel like we're quite as behind as he was in Germany. But it is great to see just how much Australian culture embraces the digitalization, especially when it comes to electronic driver's licenses. That is such a good idea. Even Medicare has its own app.
In Germany, a contract is only valid when it's physically signed. It is getting better slowly, but we are still far away from being as digital as Australia. Another thing is that in Germany, cash is king. And I know this is a bit controversial. Of course, I see the benefits of cash, but also the benefits of card. And Germany is a bit too cashy in my opinion. When you take the bus, you either pay the driver with cash or you show him the ticket for the month that you have previously purchased.
What? That is surprising to hear. Just like in Australia, I grew up in a country where basically cards are the way people go for the most part. To hear that bus drivers are still taking cash, I don't think an Aussie bus driver would know what to do if you tried to give them cash.
When you go to a restaurant in Germany, it's very unlikely that they accept card. It didn't happen just once to me that I forgot to bring cash to a restaurant, so I had to leave a deposit like my ID, go off, find an ATM and bring the money. So if you go to a restaurant in Germany, make sure that they accept card before ordering something. The other extreme is that in Australia a lot of restaurants do not accept cash, but at least they warn you with a sign at the entrance about it. In Germany they don't. I think they should just leave the choice to us whether we want to pay with cash or card.
That's an interesting point. I didn't realize just how cashless Australia's become. And one interesting thing, if you're not Australian or you're not aware of this, in some places, particularly within like the CBD areas, they now require a deposit for a reservation, even if it's just like a table of two. Ever since COVID's kind of basically disappeared, sort of, kind of, or at least the restrictions have, a lot of restaurants are now requiring you to actually put down a deposit, like a 25% deposit or like a $50 deposit in order to reserve a table, and then obviously whatever you paid goes toward the actual bill. But in Australia, I have always paid using a card. I can't remember the last time I've gone into any kind of restaurant or even a cafe and used cash. Everything for me has always been a card since moving over here. Anyway, that's it for this video, you guys. Definitely go check this guy out. He's got 1.28 subscribers at the time of this, so definitely going to go give this video a thumbs up. Let's hit subscribe to see if he has any other videos that come out about Australia, and go give him a follow. It sounds like he's a pretty good guy. It sounds like he's got some interesting insights about Australia now that he's here. Anyway, that's it for this video, you guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. I really, really do appreciate the support, and I will see you all in my next video.